Job is unhappy. So Job 16, then Job replied, I have heard many things like these. You are miserable comforters, all of you. Will your long-winded speeches never end? So if you're not the only one who's become tired of reading his friends going on and on about the same thing. Will your long-winded speeches never end? What ails you that you keep on arguing? I also could speak like you if you were in my place. I could make fine speeches against you and shake my head at you, but my mouth would encourage you. Comfort from my lips would bring you relief. So Job is saying, what's he saying? What's Job saying?
Treat you better than you're treating me.
Yeah, I'd actually be a friend to you guys. I would try and comfort you. I'd encourage you. I wouldn't be like you guys. So thanks for nothing. So he says, yet if I speak, my pain is not relieved. And if I refrain, it does not go away. So no matter what I do, I keep feeling this awful pain. Surely God, so he's gonna turn now to complain against God, which he's done before. So there's nothing really new in this part here. He says, surely God, you've worn me out. You've devastated my entire household. You've shriveled me up. And it has become a witness. My gauntness rises up and testifies against me. God assails me and tears me in his anger and gnashes his teeth at me. My opponent fastens on me his piercing eyes. What is God like? What kind of image you get in your mind in verse 9 when he describes God?
An angry dog.
Yeah, like a lion or like a fearsome, crazed dog or something. Yeah, that sounds about right. That's the image you get. He says, God, that's you. You're just like this mad dog ripping me to bits.
My brother was in a police with the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see them, when they're
they when I was in the military police, they have one of the divisions of the military police is the working dog section, where you have dogs that can sniff out drugs, dogs that can just help patrolmen. They're just the regular patrol dogs and other things. And they practice. They dress people up in these. It's called basically a red man suit. It's a heavy, thick red pads and everything. And they have the dogs like attack them to practice grabbing and biting and everything. Those dogs are really scary when they're told to attack. Like, you do not want those things to get a hold of you, because they can jerk you around with their teeth latching on you.
You should have heard his sergeant the night that the guy lowered the gun at Chip, started shooting, and the dog took him out.
Yeah.
And he chewed him all to pieces. And the man kept saying, call the dog off, call him off. And they said, he won't come off until you drop the gun.
Yeah.
We keep telling you, drop the gun. And he chewed that man up good.
Yeah.
So that's what I immediately thought of with these words.
Yeah, the way that there's nothing to do with Joe, but the way that the dogs latch on, they can just pull you all over the place. Even with a full-grown man in this heavy protective padded suit and everything, he can still just pull you all over the place. And even this one time, one of the guys in the suit was actually, we got the base attorney to volunteer to be in the suit. And he was freaked out because he thought he would be safe and everything. But when the dog grabs you, you're like, oh my goodness. He was like, get him off of me, get him off of me. So it was pretty funny. But that's like the image Job gets.
They didn't make you take a turn?
No, I didn't.
I would have thought they would have rotated that around so everybody would get the experience.
He wanted to volunteer. He thought it would be cool. I'm like, no, I'm not
The
gonna.
other side of that was Axel was the dog's name. My brother had a newborn baby, and you should have seen him in the floor with that baby. He adored her. I mean, it was just pure love. And that's
Okay, enough of the dog segue. Okay, verse 10. People open their mouths to jeer at me. They strike my cheek in scorn and unite together against me. God has turned me over to the ungodly and thrown me into the clutches of the wicked. All was well with me, but he shattered me. He seized me by the neck and crushed me. It says my internet connection is unstable. I figured that out when it kept on freezing earlier. He has made me his target. His archers surround me. So this is God. It's like God is an assassin again. Without pity, he pierces my kidneys and spills my gall on the ground. Again and again, he bursts upon me. He rushes at me like a warrior. I have sewed sackcloth over my skin and buried my brow in the dust. My face is red with weeping. Dark shadows ring my eyes. Yet my hands have been free of violence, and my prayer is pure. So what's his point here?
I didn't do anything, but yet things still kept happening.
Yeah. Like I haven't done, not that I'm perfect, but I haven't done anything. My hands are free of violence. I'm praying with a sincere heart. I'm not hiding things. I'm not pretending things are great. We're good. I thought we were good, basically, is what he's saying. I don't understand. So he says, Earth, verse 18, do not cover my blood. May my cry never be laid to rest. Even now, my witness. Okay, so this is an interesting part. He's talking, he says, even now, my witness is in heaven. My advocate is on high. My intercessor is my friend. As my eyes pour out tears to God, on behalf of a man, he pleads with God as one pleads for a friend. What does that mean? What do verses 19 to 21 mean? It's one of those like hints that Job has said before, where it's like he knows more than we think he does about the bigger Christian story. What is he saying in verses 19 to 21?
He seems to be recognizing me as a savior.
It almost seems to be talking about Jesus.
Yeah, it sounds like he's talking about Jesus, and it's really, really, it's very, very interesting because he says, he's without hope. He's talking about how he's crying and weeping, sackcloth. God is an assassin, and then Ralph is here. How you doing, Ralph? Sit next to the donuts. It's perfect.
2 or 3.
So, he says all this stuff about how lost he is, but then it's like he steps back and he says, "But there's someone who's on my side in heaven, who who's like my representative, who intercedes for me to you, God." He says, my witness is in heaven, my advocate is on high. And the advocate isn't God, because he's going to mention God. So there's God and then an advocate who's up there. My intercessor is my friend. As my eyes pour out tear to God, on behalf of a man, he pleads with God as one pleads for a friend. Who is the guy who is pleading with God on behalf of Job?
Christ.
It has to be on the side.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the rest of the story, it can only be Jesus. There's no one up there. I mean, there's no one else there.
My version says an advocate, and I had to look it up. 1 John 2, that's what it calls Jesus. We have an
Yeah.
advocate.
Yeah, so Job, this is like the second or third time where Job says something that can only really be explained with Christ. But he's so far before Christ, but he clearly knows something. He knows there's an intercessor and an advocate who's not human, who's up there in heaven, who's his friend, like the personal sort of relationship, who intercedes with God on his behalf.
The English Standard Version says, he who testifies for me.
Okay.
So he's maintaining his innocence,
Uh-huh.
and he doesn't understand why this is happening, but he knows that he hasn't.
Yeah. And so if you want to Hebrews 11, I mentioned before, is a really good passage to get a hint, to let us know that the people in the Old Testament knew a lot more than we might think. Like Abraham knew a lot more. The writer to Hebrews talks about how Abraham was just trusted, and he had faith in promises they didn't even have yet. Like they were promised, he didn't have them, but he still believed in them, and he trusted them, and he looked forward to them. He said he looked forward to a city whose builder and maker is God. He looked for the new Jerusalem that the Apostle John says is coming one day, you know, the new heavens and the new earth. That's what he's looking forward to. But you look at Genesis and you're like, oh, where did God tell him about the new heavens and the new earth? Where did God tell him about all of this stuff?
Tell him what Christ told him when he came.
Yeah, so
He visited him in
yeah.
his home. I mean,
So clearly, and there's Job with this. So the people in the certain people in the Old Testament, they clearly knew a lot more than we would think. And Job is certainly is trusting in someone who is going to testify for him, who's an intercessor, who's an advocate. She's talking about Genesis 18. So if you want, so I'm talking to Phil real quick. If you want to read a passage where a good explanation is that the Trinity, God, Father, Son, and Spirit appeared to Abraham and his family long before Christ came. Genesis 18 is a really good one to read and to think about who these three guys are who show up, and into Genesis 19. So yeah, that's if you've never seen that in Job, you can at least take that away for today. It's not as though all God's people were just walking in darkness until all of a sudden Jesus popped in Matthew, the end of Matthew chapter 1. People were waiting for the Messiah. And as the story goes on, they knew more about who they're waiting for. But even way back in Job's day, which is around Abraham's day, he clearly knew the basics of what they were waiting for. Before I go on to Job 17, because 16 and 17 is his whole response. Does anyone have any questions, thoughts? Anyone, like Lucas or anyone online, have anything they want to chime in with about Job 16 so far? Okay.
I think it's nice that he is aware of the fact that Christ is interceding for him and that he's not alone. Even with his other friends turning against him, as he says here. Christ is there, he knows, and interceding for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's like a source of comfort.
Probably the only thing he had at that point.
Yeah. So just as we're not the only ones, you know, on this side of the cross who can find hope in the fact that we have a Savior who cares about us, who knows about us, and is a friend. Because that's what Job calls this intercessor in verse 21, a friend. Jeff says that audio's echoing. Everything's messed up today. I don't know what to say. I'm very sorry. Theoretically, it should be working, but yeah. We'll go to Job 17. He says, my spirit is broken. My days are cut short. The grave awaits me. Like, again, he's no hope. I mean, I think he has ultimate hope because he has an intercessor, but you know, for this life right here, it's like he's done. He just feels like he's done. Surely mockers surround me. My eyes must dwell on their hostility. Who are the mockers who are surrounding him? Yeah, his friends. Yeah, he's like, my eyes must dwell on their hostility. He's like, instead I have these guys just sitting around here and saying all these awful things. So he says, give me, O God, the pledge you demand. Who else will put up security for me? You've closed their minds to understanding. Therefore, you will not let them triumph. If anyone denounces their friends for a reward, the eyes of their children will fail. He really doesn't like his friends. I'm not sure exactly what he's getting at here, but he seems very bitter at his friends, and says God's closed their minds to understanding. Again, like Judy's mentioned before, I don't know why he doesn't just say we're done and ask them to leave, but he doesn't. He says, God has made me a byword to everyone, a man in whose face people spit. My eyes have grown dim with grief. My whole frame is but a shadow. The upright are appalled at this. The innocent are aroused against the ungodly. Nevertheless, the righteous will hold to their ways, and those with clean hands will grow stronger. But come on, all of you, try again. I will not find a wise man among you. My days have passed, my plans are shattered, yet the desires of my heart turn night into day. In the face of the darkness, light is near. If the only home I hope for is the grave, if I spread out my bed in the realm of darkness, if I say to corruption, you are my father, and to the worm, my mother or my sister, where then is my hope? Who can see any hope for me? Will it go down to the gates of death? Will we descend together into the dust? And that's how it ends.
What version are you reading from?
The NIV. What version are you reading from?
The New English Standard. I picked up the wrong Bible.
Oh, okay.
What's
The New American Standard?
No, that's, no, I have that too, but I didn't, that's not what I picked up. This was laying on my counter where I was cleaning things out. And I picked it up, and it's the English Standard Version.
Oh, okay. All right.
I picked it up instead of the normal one I bring.
What does Job sound like? Like when he wraps up at the end of chapter 17?
That he's washing his hands of it, and that he knows something better awaits.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I like the sound of that. That something's better is awaits all of us. Sorry.
I know that hymn. I'm just
Sorry.
kidding. I'm just kidding.
God's calling me. Solo, 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 solo.
I mean, so it's like he's saying, death, just come for me. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to be done. I'm ready to go. He says, if the only home I hope for is the grave, if I spread out my bed in the realm of darkness, if I say to the worms who are going to eat my dead body, my mother and my sister, it's like he's just he's ready to go. He's done. It's over. His friends aren't going to comfort him. His friends aren't going to help him. He knows he's done nothing wrong. He knows he has an intercessor who's up there, and he knows that he has death is not going to be the end. He just wants to die and be done with it, so he can move on to the next life. He just seems very, very hopeless.
We know that Adam and Eve would have passed things on to Seth and the grandchildren and stuff of what they knew of God. And it makes you wonder how all of this, how it came down through the generations.
Mm-hmm.
They memorized things. Their stories were memorized and told. They didn't have the books. They had, I like to say, you hit a passage like this, and the awareness that they have had to come from somewhere. And how much did Abraham tell? How much did he was contemporary of Abraham? He probably wouldn't have heard anything from Abraham. So it would have had to come from further back than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's Job is anywhere near Abraham. So God may have revealed things to Job as well. We don't, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we don't know. We have what we need to know. And what is sad to me is, as we wrap up, is, if you're going to be a friend to someone at this point, if a guy's talking like this, you would think you'd have a little warmth in your heart. But Bildad, at the beginning of the next chapter, basically just says, when are you going to stop rambling on and being stupid? That's basically what he asks. He says, when will you end these speeches? Be sensible, and then we can talk. That's just not the way a friend would respond. These guys are miserable comforters. Job is right.
In this version, he asks you, why are we stupid in your sight?
Yeah. Yeah, verse 3, Bildad is going to ask, why are we regarded as cattle and considered stupid in your sight? Yeah, I wish his friends had actually acted like friends. But anyway, Job is clearly finished. He's ready to be done. He's ready to move on.
In that time, didn't people see things of this nature in a much more black and white fashion than we do now with all of the information and history that we have?
Like
I
what?
mean, well, like, they look at it and said, well, it's obvious that you have done something to earn what's happened, or you've done, you have sinned, and therefore you're being punished. And in their mind, we think about it in 2024 differently than it would have been thought about then, when things were kind of more black and white. That God is going to put his thumb on you if you don't follow the rules.
I don't think that, I know his friends seem to have that idea, but I don't think that if you look at the Bible, I don't think you can get the impression that God has ever worked that way. Like, I don't, the basis for following God has always been love.
And not to judge each other.
So I don't think that I don't think they should be thinking this way. I know they were, but I don't think you can say back then they thought more black and white than they do now. I think it's more, there's people with dumb ideas then, just like there are now. They're not necessarily true ideas. I don't know why his friends are acting like this. But it's so easy to, even today, it's so easy to take something that does have some truth and just maximize it so much that it goes all out of proportion. Like, we're supposed to live holy lives. That's fine. But then you start making all these rules and you start being very judgmental and nasty toward other people, and you become a Pharisee. And you're like, well, doesn't the Bible say we're supposed to be holy? And you're like, well, yeah, but you should tell people about God's love, and maybe they'll want to do what he says instead of just watching them all the time. You're forgetting a lot of other stuff in order to focus on this thing. I don't know why these guys are doing this. I don't think it's what they're
One
taught.
generation away from that because we've lost so much as far as our children coming to church and things like that. Listen to Joshua, my nephew,
Mm-hmm.
and he is just, now you don't know Joshua's background. Joshua's father, and with the two boys, was satanic, and he was the leader of the group. And he literally trained these two boys from the time they were tiny little boys in this cult, that their job, because his grandparents were such strong Christians, that his job would be to kill them when they were adults. When he was adults, they were adults. And so, what these children have gone through is so strong and so much. And any group of kids picks up on how they're raised, what's been given to them, what's been taught. It wasn't until my niece found out that he was taking them to satanic rituals and all of this stuff. And she managed to get away from him with the children. and had it set up so we could get her into Mexico, where he would know where they were at. I mean, it was a really, really bad situation. I'm not saying they were in this situation, but I'm saying that the way they thought would have been affected by who their parents were and what they had been taught all this time.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's, I wish we could talk to these guys. I wish we knew more about, I just wish we knew more. But
I think there's something to what she's saying, though.
Yeah.
That to them, treating him this way, for whatever reason,
Mhm.
was acceptable.
yeah. Yeah,
You think that could have been part of one of his attack, to bring these three guys to do that?
maybe. I didn't think about that before, but, I mean, Satan did say he was gonna take everything that Job had. We assume, we don't, that could include his friends. Let me see,
I never thought of that.
Me either, but it
Yeah.
totally lines up with everything else. I'm gonna take your wealth and your family.
yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
and your friends.
And influence your friends. too.
because we assume that Satan was done when his family, his property, his house, and his health were all taken, but it's possible that he also, is able to delude his friends as well, and that's part of it. I never thought about that before.
And once they got gone, they just kept going. They could not hear him.
And that's human nature.
Well,
Once people gang up on somebody,
I
they,
had never seen it from that point of view, but
Yeah,
it really makes sense.
Yeah, I never thought about that before. I think that may be the only rational explanation for why there's such nasty people to